Let's talk about how it sucks to be left out. Psychologists are interested in the idea of social rejection. Sometimes they use the term ostracism to mean the same thing. Basically, what we're talking about here is anytime you feel left out. When someone could have called you and invited you to a party, when someone could have invited you to be part of a game, but instead you feel like you were overlooked, like they were leaving you out of the fun. What psychologists are interested in knowing is, one, how does that feel? And two, what does it mean for how you react? First, to the point about how it feels, it's worth paying attention to the fact that when we describe how it feels to feel left out, we use a lot of the same words that we would otherwise use to describe what being physically in pain is like. For example, we might say that people hurt our feelings, that a person broke our heart in a relationship. These are pretty vivid pieces of language. But it might go beyond just a metaphor between being physically hurt and feeling socially hurt. Research using brain imaging is able to look at what people's brains are doing when they're experiencing rejection. What they'll do is they'll have people in an fMRI scanner and they'll make them feel like they're playing a game with some other people, and as the game goes along, the other people start to ignore them. Now, this is just a big ruse, and in fact, there are no other people, but the people in the scanner are feeling it pretty intensely. And so how does that feeling of being left out look? Well, what's interesting is that the same part of the brain that's often involved in feeling physical pain is also involved in this emotional experience as well. The dorsal anterior cingulate. It's the same part of the brain that actually is involved when you feel physical pain, and it comes online when you feel rejected as well. Another way to test this relationship between physical pain and social rejection is to give people Tylenol. That sounds crazy, of course, but it actually works. If you give people Tylenol over a course of 3 weeks, what some researchers found is that compared to groups that had been taking a placebo for 3 weeks, the people who had been taking Tylenol ended up feeling less social pain as the days went on. In other words, taking a pill that we know is involved in making your physical pain go down also makes your feeling of social rejection go down. All of this is to say that, as far as your brain is concerned, feeling left out of a group isn't all that different from any number of experiences caught on camera and used for our amusement.
An object doesn't have to be very big or very high to cause serious trouble on stair steps.
So feeling excluded doesn't just hurt in a physical way. In fact, probably the more important thing is that being excluded hurts in a psychological way, although you probably already knew that. The question, though, is why? What is it about being left out that hurts so much? Well, the problem is that a sense of belonging is like a fundamental human need. In fact, a group of psychologists have proposed the need to belong as a fundamental human motive. And so anytime we feel like we don't belong or that we're not being included, it cuts us pretty deep. It cuts at this fundamental need that we have as social human beings. It would be bad enough if feeling excluded just hurt our sense of belonging, but there are a bunch of other psychological harms as well. For example, when we feel excluded, we often have a reduced self-esteem, we lack a sense of control over our world, and we have a diminished sense of having a meaningful existence. What's crazy about all of this is that it doesn't even seem to matter who's excluding you. I mean, obviously, if your family member were to exclude you, that would feel pretty bad. Or if your close friend forgot to call you and invite you to their birthday party, that would feel pretty bad. Or if your significant other forgot your name, birthday, and everything about you, that would feel bad. But what's crazy about all this research is that that stuff feels bad, and it feels bad coming from a stranger as well. One study showed that whether the exclusion was coming from someone in your own group or someone that you don't even know very well, it doesn't feel good to be excluded. In fact, another study showed that when a computer is what's excluding you, it feels pretty darn bad. Even further, one other study showed that even when the person excluding you is someone that you would despise on moral grounds, that is, a member of the KKK, people still reported not feeling very good if they were excluded even by a person from that group. So here we're left with the question that if social exclusion feels this bad, what do people do in response to it? Well, a bunch of studies have shown that when you put people into a situation in which they feel excluded, afterward, they show a lot more interest in making friends and restoring social bonds. These studies show all sorts of things, like people who have been excluded go on to be more in conformity with a group, they cooperate with a group, they actually take on the actions and mannerisms of other people, all of which are an attempt to restore a sense of belonging, to be a part of a social group. Well, there we go. I think we can safely conclude that feeling excluded is pretty horrible, and we don't ever want to feel it at all. It all comes down to the idea that we as human beings are social people. We have a need for social belonging, and anytime something gets in the way of us and that need, it hurts. Almost as bad as a brick getting dropped on your foot. But we adapt, and we use this as an opportunity to go forward and try to make those social connections and forge even stronger ones. That does it for this week, so subscribe to my YouTube channel and like this video because I have a need for social belonging and it will hurt if you don't. For more social psychology, subscribe to this YouTube channel, or go to beapeopleexpert.com and find new articles every week about psychological science. As far as our brain is concerned, feeling left out is no different than getting your head kicked in with a machete.